So just changing over here now. So, and this is the resource that Marilia was talking about, which is freely downloadable. So we wanted to look at the result, our findings, and think of what's going to be useful and what can we do for EAP teachers to help develop different aspects of their knowledge, both that could be used as part of a course or teacher preparation, but also that teachers can do independently. So we've started to design a series of tasks, English for academic purposes, teachers can use to help develop their teacher knowledge and expertise. And we've called them the EAP teacher toolkits. In each of the three toolkits, which looks something like this, you can see down on the right, there is the overall rationale and how it relates to what we found from the teachers. There's a series of tasks and also resource links that can be used. They can be adapted depending on your context and the types of academic communication that your students would engage with and therefore which you would like to find out more about. There are some specific worksheets that guide you through some specific questions and activities, and each of them also has follow-up references. And this is the guiding principles behind them. We're very much aware of the importance of continuing professional development and also providing some framework for development here. We wanted to develop relevant content knowledge and certainly implications for pedagogical content knowledge, how we learn and teach specific aspects of subject knowledges. We asked teachers to engage with academic tasks, texts and scholarly work. One of the findings from research was the importance of the students' own socialization into academic practices that they learnt by experiences and could therefore transfer this into their teaching, that we see the benefit in learning experientially and reflecting on that. So we draw on Kolb and Gibbs here, and also that they engage and provides agency, that teachers can use these independently or as part of a group. It might be part, as we said, of an organised course, or it might be as a small community of practice. We trialled these with teachers from different campuses from USP in Brazil in the end of summer 2019, and also with EAP teachers in University of Glasgow. So we used them with teachers with different levels of experience and different contexts for teaching here. So what do they look like? Well, the first one, as you said, is exploring academic discourse as social practice. And this is really about exploring types of texts and their purpose, how they're constructed, why they're constructed, and what are the relevant linguistic and grammatical features here. There's a tuning in activity, exploring genres. We take two examples. One is an annotated bibliography, partly because it's a useful text for students and partly because it's quite accessible and short and can be done within limited time. For example, if you were doing a workshop or meeting up with peers. And then we also extend that to more in-depth analysis of student writing. And the resource links that we've used are open access and so readily available. And we're aiming here to develop knowledge and skills, particularly of content knowledge for EAP teachers. As I said, here's the rationale, links in to our research. The tuning in, ask teachers to think about their own experiences of academic writing, what it involves, whether they need to write a specific type of text, why, what is the larger purpose of the writing. Then goes on to ask teachers to explore an example of an annotated bibliography, and as I said, goes on to a larger piece of student writing and then a reflection. So you can see the example workshops here. Straightforward questions that will get teachers to explore academic communication. Many may have done this before, some may not, but these should help people to think about the purpose, the organisation, the communicative value of the text. Again, we've got links here. And then a larger, more in-depth discussion. This could be done on the annotated bibliography, but here we've suggested looking at examples of student writing. We're essentially asking teachers to do a register analysis of the register variables, so the field, mode and tenor. But while teachers may not be familiar with those terms, we've gone from more straightforward questions that they can answer. What's the text about? What's its purpose? How is this realized linguistically? How do they know? So they can start to draw out features of their texts. Again, who wrote it? Is it spoken? Is it written? So on. So these types of questions could be used with any text and genre piece of academic communication to help teachers identify the purpose and the relevant organizational, linguistic features, and also what's the purpose of the text, why is it written, and why does that, and how does that shape the communication. We do want to provide opportunities or impetus and guidance on further knowledge. So here we provide a glossary of terms that teachers would come across if they were looking at systemic functional linguistics, and some resources and methods and readings that they can then go and explore themselves or with their groups. So that's particularly looking at content knowledge. We also looked at academic practices, and this was through experiential learning and introducing threshold contexts. So here, as you said, it's experiential learning, and we asked the teachers to engage in work that we get our students to do. So they were reading a short academic article on threshold concepts, which is a useful concept for EAP teachers in themselves. Writing themselves a specific genre, so we asked them to write a short annotated bibliography and then review their work. And if they're working with peers, engage in peer review. Again, this is a practice that we might often ask our students to engage in, and which, as teachers are engaging in scholarly activity, they would be required to think about, or at least engage with the feedback from peer review. As we said, it's on threshold concepts that allow kind of an entry into a disciplinary area. Again, there's reflection on the process here. So the similar layout again, the rationale, a familiarization task, reading and taking notes, doing what the students do, and with, probably encourage people to do it with fairly limited time, because we ask students to do things quite challengingly in limited time. Writing their own entry, as I said, the peer review, and the reflection on the process, what they found, how they found it themselves, and how that could then inform their own EAP teaching. Again, we've got additional references and resources that can be used as follow-up or to support the task. So we've looked at one on content, developing content knowledge, on awareness of practices, and the last one we looked at was professional development needs analysis. This was quite a big thing for the teachers, how they could develop, particularly with limited time, particularly where there might not be any EAP classes. In the context that we were working in NUSPE, some of them had quite a lot of support and professional development, but this is not necessarily true in many contexts. And so the tasks that we have included some profile building, self-assessment, and planning. So the profile building asks people to think about what they bring to the EAP classroom, and this might be their own experience. So for example, the undergraduate teachers can talk about their own learning. They might have limited knowledge of other areas, and that's where frameworks can be helpful to further develop their knowledge. Teachers may have extensive knowledge of general English teaching, want to develop into EAP, or may have quite a lot of practical EAP knowledge and want to develop there. So it's thinking about what they can bring and contribute, first of all. We then had a self-assessment task, looking at a range of aspects that in this context originated from our research of teacher needs. Again, a reflection and action planning on goal setting. So requiring teachers to take some responsibility and bring agency to this. This is the toolkit. It's adapted, the self-assessment sheet. It's adapted partly from the Bali competency framework, but also incorporates aspects of knowledge that we found the teachers talked about and depending on the stage of their career, needed more support or wanted to develop more in. So for example, there's practical teaching approaches and lesson planning and types of things that they might look for in needs analysis. So we have the areas on the left-hand side. We have a section for people to reflect on and develop, say how much, how confident they are in an area. And then we give some starter suggestions on ways that people may develop themselves. This obviously can be adapted and added to, but it's to give some framework for development there. So there are 3 toolkits. Questions of what you can do next with them is exploring your own, or if you're working with groups of teachers, their needs, you might want to do focus groups and interviews. You might want to use the self-assessment task. Review the different tasks which are relevant to your context. Would you adapt any of these? Would you use different texts for exploration? You're welcome to adapt the toolkit task. We have a Creative Commons license on it, which means you can adapt and reuse, but do acknowledge. You may want to develop and join a learning community yourself. So we've given links here. There are some in the self-assessment, but also here, the Teaching English and Teaching English in Global Context Network has a specific EMI, English Medium Instruction section. Bali, it's a professional EAP organisation, has a series of special interest groups which anyone can join. It might depend, there is one on listening, there's one on teacher development, on academic literacies, and so on. So you can do those. And in the live Q&A session on 19th of June, we'll be available to answer questions, and we'll ask you to put those in the chat. Thank you very much.